Starting a bookkeeping business can sometimes be, a little scary. You might be new to working for yourself, or you might have been winging it for a while. Maybe you've got a little side hustle bookkeeping business going on. Either way, you don't have to go it alone. I'm 𝗟𝗲𝗱, and I've scaled and sold a 7-figure bookkeeping business, and I've been where you are now. I know the problems you're facing, and I want to share what I had to learn the hard way to help you on your journey. So follow along and let's get your bookkeeping business where you want it to be. Hey there, bookkeeping bosses. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is for those of you who have made the leap from solo bookkeeper to team leader. Or maybe you're just thinking about it and wondering, how in the heck do I manage other bookkeepers when I'm still trying to figure it all out myself, right? First of all, just breathe. You've got this. And second, leading a team while it is a whole new adventure, it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. In fact, with the right mindset and a few tools in your leadership toolbox, it can be very rewarding. I know for me personally, it was the most rewarding part of running my business. I learned some hard lessons along the way, and I became a mentor so that you don't have to learn the lessons the hard way. You can learn them. You can skip over the hard part and go directly to being a successful bookkeeper and a team leader. In this episode, we're going to dig into what it really takes to lead a bookkeeping team with confidence, compassion, and clarity. I'll be walking you through 3 themes. Let's think about how to handle mistakes without losing your mind. Because when you hire employees are going to make mistakes, right? Just like you made mistakes when you first started. So we're going to talk about how to handle that. How to build a motivated and happy team that works well together. And then lastly, just how to create a positive and supportive work environment and the work culture that you want. Because, that's on you, boss, to build that culture. We'll also talk about what leadership looks like in a bookkeeping business, how to make sure your team feels empowered, yet not micromanaged. There's a huge difference in empowering your employees and micromanaging them. And that's why you're not going to have all the answers right away. It's okay not to have all the answers right away on how to do it. I didn't do it. I'd never led a team before. I just want to treat my employees like I wanted to be treated. Hey, I have a brain. I know what I'm doing. Give me a little bit of slack here, and I will show you that I can do this, correctly. So if you've ever thought, I just want everyone to do the work, and I don't want them to need me every 5 minutes. I don't have time to answer 100 questions. This podcast is for you. So grab your coffee, get your favorite pen, or maybe a quiet corner, and let's talk about what it means to be a leader in the bookkeeping world. When you're building a team, you can hire for hard skills or soft skills, or you can teach the hard skills. I sort of did a little bit of both in my business, but we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So it's your responsibility to build up that team and figure out how to work together, right? So building a team, the first thing you have to remember is that no one is going to work harder on your business than you. Nobody really cares deeply about your business than you. While you want to give it all the extra hours and you're going to, see all the mistakes and you may feel and take it personally, your employees are not. So you've got to hire employees and you've got to trust them. And just know that it's not their company. They're working for you. It's not their company. They're not going to have as much passion for it as you do. If you do find somebody with that much passion, awesome. You've got an awesome hire. The better your team, the more coordinated you'll be and the less errors you and your team are going to make overall. So one of the things about a team, and if you've been in the business world at all, is that you have to constantly make sure that everyone's on board. Everyone's rowing in the right direction, and somebody is not in the back of the boat poking a hole in the boat. I've been there where I've had a great team and there was one person in the back of the boat poking a hole. And that was difficult to work through. And so you have to be diligent for that. Always be diligent. Is there somebody poking a hole in your boat and everybody else is trying to row? So you're going to be, intentional about your team. Good teamwork doesn't just happen. It happens because you make it happen as the business owner. Okay, so three of the things we're going to be talking about today, as I mentioned, were how to handle mistakes and to decrease their likeliness, right? And how to build a positive and motivated work staff, and then how to create that culture and atmosphere that you want that keeps everybody happy and focused on their job. But there is a balance on how you control other people, right? You don't want to overstep your boundary as a boss, but you also want to keep everybody on the straight and narrow, all in the same boat, as we said. You want everyone to work together so that they're not afraid to talk to each other. So first of all, about, mistakes. Most of us don't like admitting that we made a mistake, but you need to create an environment that it's okay to admit that you made a mistake, and make that a habit to just, it's okay. You made a mistake. Let's learn from it. On average, we prefer to be smart and helpful, and we don't want anybody to know that we make mistakes, right? So we would prefer just to gloss over them and just, oh, I hope my boss doesn't find out. I fixed the mistake. And you want them to look at their work, and if they find a mistake, to fix it. You don't want them to just be like, well, that's not my problem. You should have looked over it. So talking about mistakes and talking about how to fix them is just a learning opportunity for everyone, right? We're all learning, and, we all made mistakes and we're continuing to learn. So sometimes as bookkeepers, we tend to be perfectionist and we see things very black and white. But you'll admit that there are several different ways to maybe book something in a bookkeeping system, right? There's several different ways you could do it. You could do it transactionally. You could do it, through a journal entry. So there are different ways to do things, and remembering that too, that your employees are bringing to your company different ways of doing things, and you don't necessarily need to correct them. They're just different, but you want to encourage and embrace that. Maybe not all of your employees are going to tell you when they make a mistake, but what I would tell my employees is, hey, if you made a mistake, just tell me before the client calls me and says, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, what? So I do not want to be surprised by a client giving me a phone call about something that's gone on. And that's what I tell them. I don't want to hear it from the client. I want to hear it from you, and we can fix it, and then we'll address it to the client together if it's serious. If not, we'll just move on, and maybe we could fix it before the client, found out. So you're going to talk to your employees about mistakes are okay. You're just gonna have them learn from it. So you're gonna understand that when they make a mistake, or when you make a mistake, it's just a learning opportunity. It helps them grow, helps the team grow, helps the company grow. And then you're just gonna ask the issue, what is the training issue here? Like, what happened? And you can think about this in your head when an employee comes to you with something that happened. Is it a training issue? Strictly, do they just need to learn how this works in QuickBooks, or they tried to fix something and it didn't go correctly, and then it caused another problem, or they went back to a prior year and changed something? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's a training issue. Is it a workflow gap? Was it just straight up miscommunication? I thought the client said this, but the client said this, or the client told me to do this and I did it, but it really wasn't the right way to do it. And so, is that just a miscommunication? And then lastly, what are you going to do to fix it? Like, what are we going to do so this doesn't happen again? And so when an employee would come to me with an issue, they would often be nervous. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And it could be something like, I forgot to pay their sales tax. I don't know what happened. Like, I've paid it for 3 years. I just forgot, but I wanted to let you know. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I'm going to let the client know, and we're going to pick up that little late fee. And what did you do to make sure this didn't happen again? And then they're like, okay, well, I did this. And then we're going to work through that issue to make sure it doesn't happen again. But my employees were always amazed when they came to me. And when you have 15 employees and you're running a company for 10 years, you're going to make mistakes. I mean, you're just things happen, miscommunication happens. And sometimes you think you did something and you didn't, or the CPA asked you to do something and you forgot, or you did journal entry backwards. Things happen, and it's okay. Really, there's not much in bookkeeping that can't be fixed, right? We can fix about anything with a journal entry if we need to. But my employees would be amazed when they would come to me and be nervous. Oh, Lynn, I have to tell you, I did this. A CPA got really mad, or, the CPA pointed this out and this is what happened. I never got mad. They would say, wow, Lynn, like you never get mad. And I would think, well, why would you get mad? You're coming to me with a mistake. It never even occurred to me to get upset or to even, it just didn't bother me, didn't faze me at all. I was like, we made a mistake. Okay, what are we doing? How have you solved it? And they knew to come to me not only with what happened, but with the solution in hand. And so that always helped. Come to me with a problem, but also come to me with the solution. So we have team meetings. And so one of the things about leading a team is getting all of your team members together on a Zoom call. And that's what we would do sometimes once a week, but maybe during tax season, every other week. And they can be 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And we would talk about, I would sometimes just go over some of the issues going on, or, hey, we have these new clients. I've assigned them to these people, or who's got some availability. I've got a couple of training clients that need about 10 hours of training. Is there anybody here, that would like to do that? And then we could kind of pass people around, and that helps them. It feels like they're in control. I'm not just giving them clients and telling them they're going to do this. I ask, what is your availability? Because different people on my team have different lifestyles that they're trying to meet. Some of them only want to work 20 hours, and I've already given them 22 hours. I'm not going to give them any more work if they don't want it. But if they're like, hey, it's, February, March, my kids are fine. I just want to get more work. I want to work hard. I want more money. Yeah, give me the clients. And it just kind of creates a really open environment for them. So when we get on the team meetings, one of the first things we would ask usually is, what did you learn this week? Was there a hard lesson that you learned this week? And we would have people share that. And at first, they're very hesitant, because who wants other people to know that you perhaps don't know everything, right? And so they were hesitant to share. But after a while, it became just super obvious that that was what I was going to talk about, was how can we be a better firm? What did we learn this week? And how can we, how can we learn from that, from any of our mistakes? And it just encouraged them to bring up their mistakes. So we talk a little bit about when you make a mistake, or when one of your employees make a mistake. Like, it's hard, right? Because you want to be seen as not somebody that makes a whole lot of mistakes, but you're also human. And so we know there's somewhere in the middle is a human being, and they're just trying to do the best they can. The most important thing is that we learn from our mistakes. As soon as you learn from your mistake, the mistake is done, closed up, gone away, and you're on to something else. So if we focus continually on making a good impression, it's hard to create a better organization, because all we're doing is just kind of being faking, out front to everybody. But we want to make it the norm to talk about how we're all growing, we're all learning, we all make mistakes. Bookkeeping is not necessarily hard. It's that every client is a little bit different, and they sometimes have different needs. They book things differently. And sometimes, I know, as a bookkeeper, you just want to get in there and fix it the way you want it, right? Because this is the way you've always done bookkeeping. You're like, I don't like it like this. I want the chart of accounts to be this way, or I hate these numbers on the chart of accounts because to me it doesn't flow right, or they're not in alphabetical order now and I can't find them, And I know we all have our own ways of wanting to do something, but being able to be open to change, open to other ideas, is probably the most important part. Just focusing on learning. And of course, holding a space for your employees as the no shame zone, for honest conversations. This is what happened. And if you don't get upset, if you just be, calm about it and just look at it as an opportunity for somebody to learn something. You're like, okay, great. Well, that was no big deal. Thanks for telling me. It sounds like you got it fixed and we've got it so that you're not going to do that, make that mistake again and yeah, move on. Um, just create a culture of solutions, not a culture of, oh, we're all perfect, and you want to be a problem solver. So if you're not talking to your employees about making mistakes and having them open up to you, they're going to internalize a lot of it, and they may not feel like a good employee or even a good person. Oh, I made these mistakes. I can't let the boss know. And it makes them nervous, right? They're going to internalize that. And then when you do find out something, it's going to be a little harder to talk to them about it because they're going to want to, shove that aside. And they're going to take anything when you talk to them, then they're going to feel like it's criticizing, and stuff. Focusing on impressions. So, how does focusing on impression hurt our organization and our business? Well, you're less likely to be innovative because you're so stuck in being the same way and scared to go outside the box because you might make a mistake, right? You don't get better, the firm won't grow, and you just miss all those opportunities to grow. And when things do happen and you need to talk to your employees, they may internalize that or take it as criticism rather than just like, oh, okay, here we go. Here's another issue somebody brought up. This happened and we wanted to bring it to everybody's attention so that in the future, this is how we're going to handle that, or this is what happened. And you just want people to be, you want your employees to feel safe, safe coming to you. That's really the main thing. Just create a culture of solutions and not fear. So we talk a little bit too about kind of self-preservation. I'm guilty of that. Folks that are always trying to make sure they look perfect and they're guarding their impression management. Of course, you want to look good to the CPAs and to anybody that's out there that, yes, I'm a good bookkeeper, but you're not perfect. And if you're seen as having a big ego and can't admit that you ever made a mistake, nobody is going to want to work for you. So being a team leader, you have to show up with humbleness and say, yes, I've been exactly where you were. I mean, think about the first day you started doing bookkeeping. You didn't know what you were doing. You might have thought you knew what you were doing. You probably made several mistakes over the year. And I can look back and think, oh my goodness, thank goodness that 7-year gap is gone with the IRS now. Those mistakes I possibly made, 10 years ago, get over yourself. We all make mistakes and you need to stop. If you're the business owner, you need to stop looking like you're perfect and presenting to all of your staff that you're perfect. They're not going to come to you for help if you're seen as being perfect and not able to look at yourself and take some input or be critical of yourself. If you're afraid to approach an employee who's maybe made a mistake, then you're not leading efficiently. And it matters because every time we're silent when an employee makes a mistake, you're kind of losing that opportunity to have a learning moment. That colleague may need that learning moment. And it is hard if somebody's made a mistake and you're like, oh, I've got to go in there. And maybe that person tends to get their feathers ruffled pretty quickly. And they might, not take your words very easily. It can be nervous. It can make you nervous going in to try to talk to somebody who is going to be quickly, push back on you and not want to accept what it is. So you have to learn how to talk with them and just be positive and upfront and, okay, this happened to me and this is what I did when I made this mistake, but I wanted to make sure you were aware of it so that going forward, we won't have this issue again. And then that person can grow. That helps your firm grow. It helps everyone in the organization grow. So when you tell the employees you want them to grow. That's what I used to do too. I used to be, I want you to grow. How do you want to grow? What do you want to learn about? And I wanted them to be excited about learning and learning, because when you learn, you're going to do less mistakes. So that's just part of the psychology, behind that. So what is the best way to give feedback to somebody, to kind of maintain that psychological safety so that they feel good about themselves and yet you've still been able to get your point across? So, just be humble yourself, show that you're not perfect and that you're still learning and that you have made that same mistake. Give very constructive feedback, not just being nice or glossing over it. A confused team is a stressed team. So remember that. If your team is confused about maybe how to do some type of process or how you're going to come back and talk with them, it's going to stress them out. You would be stressed. Think about the job you had before you were a bookkeeper. Maybe you were working for a big company. How stressful it was if the boss came around and you didn't know how they were going to treat you. Were they going to jump on your back, or were they going to talk to you nicely? You have to be consistent and give constructive feedback and just, stay positive. I love it when an employee would come to me and ask, am I doing okay? Because if they didn't feel comfortable coming to me, they would never come and say that, right? I never went to a boss and said, am I doing okay? I had the confidence to, I just felt like I knew that I was doing okay. And that boss gave me the ability to have that confidence. So, as you're going through leading your team, talking about mistakes and growing are probably the two biggest things that you're going to do. So framework bookkeeping as just continuous learning, just learning every day. It's one of the things I like about it is that it lets me learn something new every day. So let's talk a little bit about, are employees happy? How do you know if your team is happy? A recent Gallup poll found that 70% of all American workers say that they don't like their job, and about 20% are actively disengaged. So if you are allowing your employees to be disengaged from you or from the team, that's a disservice to the company. And that person is going to be disengaged with clients and they're just not going to do their best. So we've all worked somewhere where we felt like we were just a number and that, that our boss didn't care about us, or we didn't have the ability to become a better employee or the ability to move up and get ahead. We just felt like we were stuck in this role and our boss is always riding us and that's all we can do. So if you think about that, that's the boss that you don't want to be, right? Because what happens with an employee who feels like they have nowhere to go and that no matter what they do, their boss is going to come in here and tell them they made a mistake. And then that's the end of it. The boss doesn't encourage them in other areas. They just tell them when they make a mistake. They're going to feel like if I put in a lot of effort, or if I put in no effort, or if I care, or if I don't care, I'm just going to get paid the same. And she's still going to come in here and tell me that I'm doing something wrong. So you have to get inside your employees' heads too. Now, creating an environment where all of your team members are happy and positive, it doesn't happen by accident. I had great employees that worked for me. When I first started, they were so dedicated. We were all up and running and we all helped each other, and they helped me learn a lot about how to be a boss. And so one of the things that I did after about year 5 or 6, when I was able to make more money, I had a lot of financial freedom then, I would really start rewarding my employees. That was one of the things I did. And at Christmas or just different bonus, after tax season, I would give them a little bonus because they did that work. They helped me get where I am. And by showing them that appreciation, it also helps them to come back and say, hey, can I do some more work for you? Or is there something, I can learn, something I can take off your plate, Lynn? And that's the kind of employees that you want. So do you know if your employees really love working for you, like really, really, I don't know. See if you can get into their heads and see if they really love working for you, and find out what it is that they like and want to do and what their future is, and help set them on that path. One of the things I did with my employees at every year when we had a performance review, I had a whole section that says, "Tell me your goals." They can be personal or business goals, whatever you want to tell me that you think I might can help be a part of. And so I would take that. They're like, "Oh, I want to get my payroll certification." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I had no idea that that was something that they wanted to do." And I would say, "We're going to do that right away." And so by allowing them to tell you, "Here are the things I want to do. I want to be able to start doing job costing, or I want to be able to take nonprofit clients." I'm like, "That's great." Some of the things I just didn't think about because I was pretty busy doing things. I just thought they were happy with what they were doing. So some people are happy with what they're doing. They're like, "Please don't give me more work or stress me out. I just want to stay in my box and do the little clients that I have." And I'm like, "You got it. We're going to keep you right there in your box, and you can just do that all day long as they're doing it well," right? Every employee is different. So really think about how you can help your employees go forward. One of the things that's interesting, when I did end up selling my business, most of my employees eventually went out and started their own bookkeeping company, and I have helped them do that. And so that's been amazing to watch them grow and open up their own bookkeeping. But that's your job as the business owner, is to find out what it is they want to do. And some people say, "Well, I don't want to spend all this time training because they're just going to leave and open up their own bookkeeping company." And I'm like, "Great. What's wrong with that? Have at it." I'm so happy that they did that, and they went there with solid background on how to do things. We still collaborate with each other. We send each other clients. We still talk, get together, and that's a community of bookkeepers. Just a community that is, positive. So that's one of the things that you will want to foster, is just good relationships, even after the employee leaves, keeping those good relationships. It doesn't have to stop because they left and opened up their own bookkeeping company. Sure, you're disappointed. I was like, "Oh no, not my, not my trainer, or not my best employee," but it will work out. So hiring the right bookkeeper for your team is one of the most important leadership decisions that you're going to make. So you may not have experience in hiring people or in HR, but you do know what it takes to be a bookkeeper because you're one. So just look at those skills. You've got hard skills, soft skills, and usually you're going to hire for a mix of both. And that's a big part of what you're looking for, is a mix of both hard and soft skills. Now, you know what you need in your business. If you just want somebody in the background, maybe they're not really good at customer relations and all of that, then you can hire them as a workhorse in the background. They don't really have to do a lot of customer relations or customer service. They can just do maybe payroll, or they can do reconciliations for you. But in the beginning, I hired for hard skills because I needed somebody that knew QuickBooks Desktop upside down and backwards. And that worked out well for me. And then we came around with, with the soft skills. But usually it was just a mixture of both. They had had some experience with QuickBooks, but they were like, I could tell they were outgoing, they were polite, they had, time management skills, and that worked out well. They could learn QuickBooks pretty quickly under my tutelage and under the tutelage of the other employees. So it's good to have both. So I don't have a special secret or magic for it, but like if it's an entry level role, you can hire for the soft skills and train for the hard ones. Maybe they've been an office manager and they've kind of been in QuickBooks, but, not a lot, or just very narrow scope of work. Sure, you can hire them, train them, and then you'll train them the hard skills. If it's a more senior role, you're going to look for more of a balance in that. But really, I look for people that are coachable, that are detail oriented, they're eager to learn, and they're just a positive person. I like to be around positive people, so I only hire people that are positive. If they come in there with a negative Nancy attitude, it's not going to go over well, and it's just going to drag me down. It's going to drag your team down. So moving from solo work to leading a team, it's a whole nother level, and it's a different skill set than I had, and I had to develop that over time. Nobody taught me how to lead a team of bookkeepers. It sort of just happened, but I learned from my employees. I just simply treated folks like I wanted to be treated. And if I stepped out of line, or they would, come and remind me. I had great employees that we all worked together, and they felt comfortable coming to me and saying, "Hey, Lynn, can I do this, or can I take this off your plate, or I really don't want to do this, or you've given me this responsibility and I don't feel comfortable with it." And that's good, rather than just leaving the company, right? And they're able to talk with me. So now we had an office setting so people could pop in and out of my office. In the early days. It's a little different now with everybody on Zoom. But that's why you're going to have those weekly meetings, Zoom meetings, so people can get to know each other, and they're going to be able to talk to each other and feel the camaraderie that you want them to feel. Um, so we've talked a little bit about letting people know that you are fallible. It's just one of the things that comes with being an owner of a business. You're learning to be a leader, and you can tell them, "I'm learning all of this." But you want to let your team know that in the past you've made mistakes, or this is what happened, and just feel free to talk about problems, failures, how to overcome them. When you bring it up an issue in a meeting, make it a team problem-solving opportunity, right? "Hey, how should we solve this?" Or, "This is what happened, and this is how we solved it. We had to solve it quickly, but let's talk about the problem and maybe how we can do that better." When you get about 10 to 12 employees, the entire dynamic changes on how you're leading a team. It's just very difficult to directly supervise 10 employees and all of their clients. You're going to want to have like either an operation manager, or maybe a couple of managers to manage some of the junior, bookkeepers. You're going to want some more structure. And of course, your job is to make sure the people that are doing the management have the leadership skills you're looking for, so that they are leading the team the way you want them to be led. So that happened to me about year 4 or 5, and the employees that had been with me for 4 or 5 years were able to come and take that opportunity and roll with it. So just know that once you get up to 10 or 12 employees, it's really difficult to manage, all of them. So we also talked about what would the employees like to learn? What are their goals? What are they missing? Is there a skill missing in their skill set? What part of their bookkeeping knowledge are they missing? Have they? We mentioned something like maybe being able to, work with nonprofits. It's very different than a for-profit company. And how can we fill in that gap, you know? And I call that modeling curiosity. What is it that you want? Think about the future. Think about where you're going, and you want them to feel comfortable learning new things, taking on new clients. And again, okay, if they're just the kind that's like, "Don't bother me with new stuff. It freaks me out. I just want to sit in my corner and do my 5 little clients." I had a couple of employees like that, and they were part-time. They had, children at home, and they just wanted 20 hours. They were awesome. Some worked for me for 7 or 8 years and just did the exact same clients for like 7 years. And that's perfect. That's just sort of your little workhorses, and that's fine. But other people who you want to have as 40 hours, you want to have as a team member for you, helping you want to make sure that they have the curiosity to look around and see how the business can grow. I was raised with a curious mindset. I don't know how that happens, but it does. So I'm always curious about other things, about learning, and I love learning. And if you were raised with a curious mindset, then it just comes easy for you. It comes completely natural to you. And same with just being raised in an optimistic and positive environment. It will come easier for you. It will be harder if you were not raised with a curious mindset or in an optimistic and positive environment. Those are things that you would have to work on as a leader. And you'll know it right away. You can feel it. Um, so we talked about how do you raise this curiosity, and I talk about in our staff meetings. So we have a quick staff meeting pretty much every week, maybe every other week during tax season or some other difficult time. But um, at the very first thing we start with was, how was everybody's week? You tell us something that you learned this week, or tell us a high or a low that you had this week, and everybody's silent. So after a while, they realized that I was not going to let them get by with that. I would actually call them out. Okay, hey, Ashley, what did you learn this week? What was something that happened? What was a high or a low? And then, she would go and I would go to the next person and the next. And so they realized that they were going to have to talk in the meeting. Some didn't want to talk in the meeting. But when you get them talking about it and asking questions, and the other employees were like, oh, I know how to do that. I'll help you, show you how to get those PayPal entries into QuickBooks, that through the PayPal app. And they start talking to each other and helping each other. Yes, that's what you want as a leader. You don't want everybody coming to you every 5 minutes with all the problems, right? You want them to come to each other. Well, they're not going to go to each other if they don't have these meetings and feel comfortable that that's the environment that we're creating. So I actually would send out before the meeting, maybe the day before, sort of like a little motivational Monday. Okay, don't forget our meeting on Tuesday. Think about what you can bring to the meeting, something that happened this week that you'd like to share with the group, a supposed learning opportunity for everybody, or a learning moment. And they would bring that. So I loved sharing that. Sometimes that would be the whole meeting would be talking about the different things that we learned that week. And every single episode of that for 10 years, when we would meet, I would learn something myself. I would say, oh, I haven't seen that button in QuickBooks. There was a time when QuickBooks was adding buttons and adding features so quickly, no matter how many webinars you went to with Intuit, you would miss some things. And so someone would get on and say, let me I'll show you my screen. I want to show you a new way to do this, or look at this button here, look at this. And I would be wowed. And so when they have an opportunity to wow their boss, like, that's great. And that makes them feel really good, because I'm not in the files every day, right? Sometimes as the owner, you're not in there doing all the work every day. You might have a few files you're doing a few things in, but if there's a new button in QuickBooks or a new way of doing something, you might not have seen that. And I always want the easy button. I always want to make sure that I know the easiest way and the best way to get something into QuickBooks and to, just to do the job. So having employees tell each other each week what they learned and what's going on and what the new things are is one of the best ways to motivate the whole staff to just start looking and being curious and growing, looking at more than just their client file, looking at the big picture. I also would ask them during the meeting, what can I assist you with this week? What's going on? What are some of the concerns? And then if they had a specific client concern, they knew they could just book a meeting with me one-on-one and just say, hey, Lynn, I'm going to book a meeting with you about this client. Something's going on, and I just need to go over it with you. And that's cool. They would do that rather than bringing that up in the group meeting. But how can I assist you this week? How's it going? And what's happening in the entrepreneur world? What's happening in the Intuit world? What are some things going on? And I made sure that my employees had all the training they needed. Who needs training? And we would, click that little button there to get them training as well. So we've talked a little bit about how we all make mistakes, but how to handle when an employee makes a mistake, how to handle that graciously, and then how to kind of build the culture that you want in a bookkeeping business. How do you build a culture of honesty and openness, and just the ability to want to learn from each other? And then, but now we're going to talk about something that I think is really important to understand. And this took me a while, because I'm super passionate about my business. I loved my business. Matter of fact, some days I do miss my business, running it. Other days I don't. But it's very important to understand that no one is going to love your business like you do. That's just an acknowledged truth right there. And you think, wait, nobody's going to care about my business as much as I do. That's true. They're there to work for you, and it's your business. They're just not going to care about it as much as you do. And why? Because it's yours. It's your baby. You built it. It's your dream, your risk, your name's on the line. You did all of that, and they're there working for you. Employees aren't invested, but it's not their legacy. It's not their financial future that's at stake. And that's okay. So just shift your expectations, because what happens is you feel like if an employee makes a mistake and they don't immediately own up to it and, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me figure out how to fix this. I'll do an email. We'll get this fixed. Maybe they just blow it off. It's hard not to take that personally, right? You're like, dude, these are my clients. This is what I built. I have been out shaking hands with, the Chamber of Commerce people for 10 years. And you just blew off a mistake from a client that I've had a relationship with for a long time. And this is a client that may tell another, a person or may get the word out. So it's hard when an employee makes a mistake or does something not to take it personally, right? Because it is kind of personal because it's your personal business. Also, if an employee doesn't have that sense of urgency, I know with me, and this is probably, and my employees will probably tell you, I was always like, hurry, 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 get it done, urgency. I just had such a passion for just stop talking about it, just get it done. I would sometimes push employees a little bit more with the sense of urgency, but they also knew that they couldn't just dilly-dally around, that it's tax season. We got to get this stuff done. Stop waiting for the client to respond after you've asked them 3 times. Pick up the phone and call them, call the CPA, or do a recap. And this is what I do, a recap to the CPA. Hey, it's April 1st. I want you to know I've not been the file's ready to go except the following. I CC the owner, and then that way the CPA can decide, oh, I can go ahead and do the taxes without that information, or I can find out that information and do it for you, and you're done. But sometimes if an employee didn't have a sense of urgency, I would take that personally. Like, it's my business. You need to get out there, So having looked at myself behaving that way and then looking back, just realizing that just because you've poured your blood, sweat, and tears and spreadsheets and all of your life earnings maybe into it, doesn't mean that they feel the same way. So it's not bad that they do that. Just need to sort of reframe your expectations. So just think about, for your employee, think about, what does excellent look like in their role? So you're looking at the employee, and what does excellent look like in their role? It doesn't mean running around, following me, doing everything I tell them to do, but it means being the best bookkeeper that they can be, being on time and having great communication, steady, not letting clients slide or things slide by. What does excellent look like in the employee role? And then secondly, have I clearly communicated my expectations and my values? I value communication. I value timeliness. Those are the things that keep our bookkeeping firm apart, set us apart from other bookkeeping firms. And then lastly, we've talked about this too. Ask what motivates them. How can I align that with our business goals? What is it they want to do? Oh, you want to learn this new skill? Here you go. I'm going to pay for you to go to this class and learn this new skill. And then I'm going to get you in. How does that align with our business goals? And then you can start taking on this type of client. So if you start to get frustrated that your employees they just don't care about my business, or you start to feel that, then it's time to look at the expectations. And again, I'll repeat those 3. What does excellent look like in their role? And have I clearly communicated my expectations and values? And then 3, what motivates them? And how can I align that with my business goals? So when you stop expecting them to do it, to own it, you stop expecting them to look at the business like you look at the business and be excited like you're excited at the business. You can make room for them to be where they need to be in the business that's authentic to them, because they're not the business owner. They're not ever going to be as excited as you are. You want them to be, but they're not, right? It would be kind of weird if that they would be over the top excited about the business in the way that you are. Unless you're thinking about making them a business partner. And that's something to think about as well when you start to grow, right? Some of the things we talk about in our training circle is how do you grow and stay sane, right? So creating a positive work environment includes emotional and practical support. So when your team is there, practical support is always there, but emotional support, I would always ask my employees, how are you doing? How's your family? Or how are you feeling today? And make sure that they were doing okay. And if they had something going on in their personal lives, I made absolutely sure that their number one priority was themselves. I would say, please do not log in, do not do anything. Take care of whatever issue it is, your family, your child. Don't worry about any of us. There is no bookkeeping emergency. Take care of yourself and put the business, on the back burner, because nothing makes you feel worse than not being able to um, support your family and your boss is riding down your throat, and yet you've got to be in a situation, maybe your child's in the hospital or something, where you need that emotional support to stay there. And that's one thing about working for yourself and being your own boss. You can be the kind of boss that you want to be. One of my employees one time had a family member, her mother, I believe, was dying, and they were in another country, and it was just sad. It was like right in the middle of tax season, and I said, "You need to go. You need to go. Absolutely, you need to go. That's not even a question. Just pack up your stuff and go." And she was great. She took her laptop, but she went, and we supported her on what she needed to do. So don't ever feel like you just have to drive your team like all the time. You're going to feel like that because as an entrepreneur, your tendency is to just go, 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 work, work, work. And when people aren't falling in behind you as fast and as efficient, sometimes that can get frustrating. So just remember, your employees are people. They all have their own lives. And one of the other things I want to talk about is don't glorify burnout. I have a tendency to work, 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 work really hard. And I have a lot of energy. I go really fast. You can probably tell my podcast. I don't give up easy. I can talk all day long. And I don't know, I don't need a lot of sleep. I just go, go, go. And sometimes I look around, I go, why can't my employees like keep up with me? Some of them are half my age, and I wonder, why they can't. And that is not healthy, because just because I am, about to burn out, because eventually I did, right? We're all going to burn out if we're just burning that candle at both ends and we're going for 5 years and don't take vacation and just go, go, go. You're going to burn out. So don't glorify that. You'll get to a point where you're just at your wit's end and you're working 60 hours a week. And that's the time when you need the staff to step up and you need to say, look, I don't want to burn out anymore. I'm going to hire a new employee, or I'm going to hire an operations manager, something like that. But keep all the workflows manageable. There's nothing worse than somebody just, giving you work, work, work all the time, and you're already maxed out. We saw that happen with some of my employees who were working for other companies. They're like, I can't take it. They just would keep giving me more and more and more, and it wasn't very fair. And when they would ask not to, they would say, well, you have to because we don't have anybody else to take it, or your skill set is good. So they ended up, just because they were so good, they ended up taking on work from other people because other people couldn't do the work. Rather than training the other people, they would just cram all the work onto one person. And so we know that that doesn't work long-term either. So keeping the workflows manageable, and I do that by asking constantly, how are you doing? How's the workload? Let me know if you need anything, or, whatever. And, they would not be afraid to come and say, I need to offload, this client. There may be a personality thing. It just may be something going on that I wasn't aware of. And we would work to try to transfer that client, or maybe a client that we had to let go just because they were maybe just too difficult to work with. And I don't want a client to come in and kind of browbeat one of my employees. because they think they're, all that. And so when that happens, I would have to step in and be like, oh, this isn't going to happen. And we would just slowly raise our prices or just kind of work them out of our out of our client base, lots of ways to do that. So show appreciation for your employees whenever you can. A little goes a long way. I like to surprise them with little gifts. I would mail them to their home, chocolates or just different things at totally random times, and just to let them know I really, really appreciated what they did. So looking back at building a team, how I built a team, what I loved the most was that the team would go to each other for help on problems, like before coming to me. At first, they would come to me, but as we worked together and the employees, stayed, and we have all our meetings, by meeting each week, they got to know each other and who would help them with anything. And everybody just had a helpful attitude. They're like, oh, I'm open anytime somebody needs help with something, or if you need me to, walk through something with you. And I appreciated that. I had a little time tracking button on for it. For a lot of my employees were hourly at the time; they were working part time. So I had a little time tracking button in T-sheets that said training. I'm either training another employee, or I'm in training, or I'm with Lynn training. In other words, it's not billable. And I would be like, you click that training button anytime, because when someone else on my team is helping another team member, that means I don't have to help the team member. And sometimes they have a way of building that team member up that I don't have. They have a way of talking at a level that's more comforting, and they can do that. It's sort of like, meeting at the water cooler, and they talk about, how they handle this client or whatever. So as long as that doesn't get out of hand, that's a great way to have them talk to each other. That was my favorite part, when they would say, oh, don't worry, I got with Ashley on that, or I got with Belinda on that, and she showed me how. And I'm like, oh, I love that. I love you guys. And that's the kind of team that you want to build, so that you are working together and just creating a home run there. So in conclusion here, I guess the last thing I want to say is, one of the hardest parts for me, and it will be for you, is to give up some control, right? Because when I was able to look at my employees as a team and not just individual workers, I was able to trust them with running parts of my business. I had somebody else do my payroll, somebody else do my billing, and then I was able to trust them, to help run the business and help, train each other. So that's one of the hard parts. Control is hard for us to give up. I know exactly what it's like to feel that nobody can do it as good as me. And I don't say I'm a control freak, but I've run the business for 2 or 3 years by myself. And so giving up parts of that, that's hard, but that's also being a leader. A leader is recognizing that and being able to trust your employees to handle parts of the business or the training. If you can't trust your employee like 100%, I'm going to give you this client, you go, you train them, you do pay their sales tax, you do everything. If you can't trust your employee, you've hired the wrong employee, or you have the problem, because you have to be able to give up control and not micromanage your employees and trust them. Micromanaging is going to be the first thing to let people walk out the door, especially if they're smart and bright and they're very capable on their own. They're going to walk out the door if you start micromanaging them. So just remember that as well. I hope you've learned some things today about being a leader. Some of these are obvious, and some of these are maybe more detailed about leading specifically bookkeepers. But thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope this episode gives you some clarity, encouragement, and maybe a few aha moments when it comes to leading a bookkeeping team. If you like what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button or tap follow wherever you're listening, so you won't miss a single episode. I've got lots more tips, real talk, and behind the scenes stories coming your way.